Welcome back. Well, millions of Turkish voters will head to the polls on Sunday to decide whether to abandon the country's parliamentary democracy and expand the powers of the president. Recep Tayyip Erdogan held his final rally in Istanbul just a few hours ago. He says a yes vote will bring stability and confidence. The No campaign has complained of intimidation and violence. They say the changes would give the president far too much power. Well, for more insight on Sunday's referendum, Cagaptay is the director of the Turkish research program at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. He's also the author of The New Sultan, Erdogan and the Crisis of Modern Turkey. Always good to have you with us.
It's a pleasure.
Firstly, Erdogan's supporters say he needs these powers to rein in the chaos. Critics, of course, worry about this being an enormous power grab. How are the campaigns shaping up?
It looks like it's going to be a very close vote. What is really at stake is that whatever is the outcome, whether Erdogan wins or loses, Turkey is unfortunately stuck in what I think is a crisis, a permanent state of crisis. Here is why. If he loses, it's very likely that he's going to want a rerun of the referendum. So the deep societal polarization which has gripped the country is only going to continue until referendum round number 2. And if he wins, although things might calm down in the short term, Turkey really won't stabilize because Erdogan is a right-wing nationalist conservative leader. He wants to shape the country in his own image. Half of the country adores him, but the other half of the country loathes him. And I think even if he wins, of course, he won't become the president of the entire country. And I think Turkey will remain split between those that love him and those that detest him. And that is a long-term recipe for a permanent state of crisis in a very important country.
Speaking of those who detest him, since last year's failed coup, we've seen Erdogan oversee the firing of more than 100,000 people, the arrest of around 45,000 people. Are there going to be voters that are intimidated when they cast their ballot?
We'll see tomorrow. There's some talk that in the Kurdish area, some of the voters might be intimidated because of the fighting that has been going on, and about 500,000 people have been displaced. So it's hard to see that they'll have access to ballot boxes. But Turkey has a long tradition of holding really good, transparent elections. Since 1950, the country has had more elections than, let's say, Spain had since the 1970s. So I hope that this is going to be a really clear, fair race. But we'll have to see tomorrow if these allegations of vote suppression or intimidation of the opponents will become an issue.
And just finally, give us a sense of the bigger picture. If he does win this referendum, if Erdogan becomes, he takes on and has these sweeping new powers, what does it mean for the future of the democracy in Turkey?
He does. If he wins, of course, he takes over sweeping powers as head of state, head of government, head of ruling party. He becomes the most unassailable leader in Turkey, as I have argued in my book, The New Sultan, in the sense that he becomes almost as powerful as Ataturk, the country's founder. But the problem is Ataturk was not democratically elected. Erdogan is. And what is more, half of the country will never agree to fold under Erdogan's rule. An opposition group of including many people, leftists, Kurds, liberals, and Alevis who are liberal Muslims. And the question is, what happens to that country in a place where Erdogan wants to dominate 100% of it, but only 50% of that subscribes to that agenda, and the other 50% or something like that will never fold under his authoritarian and conservative rule. So I think Turkey is going to be gripped by a new wave of instability in case of an Erdogan win. It does not clear things up, and I think actually in the long term that projects more instability than a loose scenario, which could allow some of the forces of the center right to come against Erdogan from both within his party and also from the opposition.
All right, Cagaptay, we could continue this conversation, but we're going to leave it there for now. Good to have your analysis. Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.